Hello and welcome to Business Incorporated, and thank you for joining us. I'm Chimeze Obi Iwago. On today's program, Moody's cut South Africa's 2019 GDP growth forecast to 0.7%. World Bank forecasts 2.9% growth for Somalia. Plus, the Seychelles Stock Exchange becomes the first entity in the world to hold an initial public offering of security tokens. We'll get the show started now with the markets. Investors' sentiments in African markets were mostly positive today, except the index in South Africa. At intraday, the JSE index shed 0.61%, while the NSE here in Nigeria was up marginally. In Egypt, the EGX30 gained 0.47% as annual urban consumer price inflation rate decreased to 7.5% in August, the lowest rate in years, which was seen by analysts as opening the way for further rate cuts by the central bank. Kenya closed positive on Monday. And in the Middle East, Saudi Arabian stocks fell at intraday as banking shares weakened, while builder Abatech Holding posted its sharpest single-day rise in more than 2 years after announcing a potential merger, helping it to lift the Dubai index. Our Saudi index was down 1.10% as RG Bank and the kingdom's largest lender, National Commercial Bank, both dropped 1.1%, while Qatar's index traded higher by 0.65%, with its blue-chip petrochemical maker Industries Qatar shedding 1.4%. In the UAE, Dubai's index was up 0.44%, with its largest listed developer, Emma Properties, gaining 0.4%. The Abu Dhabi index edged up 0.39%, with Alder Properties adding 1.4%. The firm earlier this week said it was launching a residential project on Saadiyat Island that would be open to all nationalities. In Europe, the stock market remains subdued and undecided as traders are anticipating an interest rate meeting of the European Central Bank on Thursday. But from the corporate world and also in Europe's capital, a lot is happening to give traders stuff to discuss. Well, let's get details of the latest developments from Conrad. Hello, Conrad. Good afternoon. Good to see you.
Good afternoon, Chivi. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me again.
Sure. Well, in Germany's capital, Berlin, budget discussions are beginning in the German parliament. Is your government going to spend more to prevent a recession?
Well, Jimmy, we shouldn't expect classical deficit spending. The government will not just make more debt and spend it in order to give the economy a boost. Our constitution here in Germany contains a very nice German word, which is Schuldenbremse, and it means a brake on new government debt. It's simply forbidden for the government to take on as much debt as it would like to. But clearly something is being planned. Olaf Scholz, our finance minister today, who presented the new budget for 2020, said something remarkable. He said to reach Germany's ambitious climate change targets, it's not enough to plan the way Germany has been planning for a very long time. Private investment, he said, was necessary. And this is really, for people I talked to here on the trading floors at the exchange, a hint that something's in the planning. Many people here are speculating about private investment firms that the government might set up, which would not be subject to the brake on new debt, but which would be able to benefit from the extremely good credit rating that Germany has, from the super low refinancing costs. Remember, most of our government debt, most of our sovereign bonds are carrying negative yields. Never before it has been so easy for a country to get money on the financial markets. Those entities, they might collect money and try to invest it in projects which tackle with the large problems of the future, including climate change. Not many details are out yet, but this is clearly something contributing to a little bit of optimism on the trading floor at the moment, a little bit of positive sentiment.
Now in Britain, the Brexit chaos seems to be put on hold as Parliament has been sent into suspension for a couple of weeks. Meanwhile, pilots at British Airways are going into their second day of strike. What's the European market's take on this?
Well, you know, there is a saying here in Germany, one company's sorrow is the other company's joy. So clearly, many investors are believing that companies like Lufthansa, which is one of the major competitors for British Airways, will likely benefit from the situation. For British Airways itself, well, the strike is really a big problem. It's the first strike, by the way, in the around about 100-year-long history of British Airways. And it's not the only problem it has. Recently, there have been reports about stranded passengers, IT failures, about, hacking attacks that came along with lost data. As a consequence, the management of reputation company Alva is giving British Airways a very negative rating. It's only on place 55 out of 65 airlines. Now, later this week, the CEO of British Airways parent company International Airlines Group, Willie Walsh, will be grilled by investors at a roadshow which has been in the planning for quite a while. It's very likely that he will face tough questions, especially also as the share price of British Airways has come significantly under pressure this year so far.
All right, Conrad, tell me, what's the latest from the Frankfurt Motor Show, which started today? All of the car makers are showing new models, discussing the challenges of the future. What sticks out for investors?
Well, Volkswagen presented a fully electrically driven car yesterday night at a large event here in Frankfurt. It's called the ID. But I have to say, the detail or the piece of information that was really interesting for investors at the event was not really the car. It came from Wolfgang Porsche, who is representing one of the families that dominate the Volkswagen Group. He's one of the major shareholders of Volkswagen. And he sort of reignited the idea that Volkswagen might cooperate, maybe take over at least parts of Tesla. He talked about the idea that taking over parts of Tesla might be a good idea. Of course, given the current valuation of both companies, complete takeover of Tesla by Volkswagen is not very likely, but many investors or also analysts for the sector are convinced that the cooperation of both companies would be a very good idea. Now, another company making a bit of people's talks at the motor show is Ford. The talk is also happening here at the stock exchange because Ford was downgraded. Its credit rating was downgraded by Moody's. That's really not the kind of information you want when one of the most important trade fairs for the sector is underway. And another company making negative headlines, another car maker, Nissan, the CEO, Mr. Saikawa, was ousted after it came out that he was not the only one next to Carlos Ghosn, the other ousted CEO of Nissan, who got problematic payments, at least payments that were not in line with compliance rules at Nissan. As a consequence, Nissan's shares are significantly under pressure this Tuesday.
Right, Conrad, thank you for those updates. See you again tomorrow.